Welcome back to the dopest show you won't get sick of. I'm Spencer. This is Sasha. I spent most of my 20s in federal prison, but I've been off heroin since April 9, 2010. Got a lot of stories about the stupid stuff I did to get put in prison. Also got a lot of stories about the crazy stuff that happened while I was in prison. God forbid you end up in prison. I want to make some of the same mistakes I made, so I ran a chop shop, and I'm going to get to that here in a second. It's a very interesting story and how this came about. But, just to give you a little background, at 16 years old, I was the driver for the biggest heroin dealer in my city. He had me driving back and forth picking stuff up because I was underage. I'd get like a year, and he'd get decades for the same amount. I was hanging out with this whole group of people, mostly in their 30s and 40s. I thought I was one of the guys, and he did seem like he looked at me like a little brother, like an apprentice type deal. But I mean, I look at it now, what business would I have hanging out with, kids, you know what I mean? And see it for what it is. So ultimately, what happened with him was a 90-day driving sentence. During that time, he lost everything. His whole empire crumbled, fell to pieces, and it's crazy because he literally sold it. If you were to calculate the amount of money, it would be enough to retire 10 times. He wasted every bit of it. Every night was a party. Every night, he bumped half O to an O a blow and passed it around to the whole, entourage. And I mean, he's making that money to where he could do that. And it's the hardest partying bunch you've ever seen. There was one time, for a month straight, rented the governor's suite at this hotel that's here in the city. Man, that was like $800 a night if I remember right. And we stayed in that thing for a month straight. I mean, it was crazy stuff like that. It was like unbelievable. And me, as an aspiring George Jung, thinking I was going to be the next super dealer, I thought that was just the coolest thing. Like, he was like complete and total rock star, and I'm like basically picking his brain on how stuff works and how it goes about. And I'm wanting to, that's what I wanted to be, because I was delusional. I look at it now, see it for what it is. Lost my 20s to federal prison. I see it as it is. But at that time, I don't know. So my mom did not allow me to stay with her, rightfully so. She found a piece under my pillow when I was 14 years old on the 4th of July. I'll have her tell about that another day. That was a bad day. That was a day, oh man, and my excuse was it didn't have a clip in it. Shouldn't be that mad. No, it did not go over well. So I was not allowed to stay there because I had a little sister living there. And also, even if I didn't, shouldn't have been. I was choosing to do this. I did not have to do this, but because I chose to do this, I was a homeless dealer. And as much money as I ever had, me and my one friend, who's not with us anymore, I remember one time specifically, stuff had happened. We had to get out of there. We went over to his cousin's house. We had like more than $10,000 between the two of us. But we didn't have any place to live. We were staying on a couch when we had that much money, and that much money was going in and coming in and going out. It was absurd and insane. So when I was driver for that guy, there were two kids. Well, I guess, yeah, they're kids. But I was a kid. They were kids that were 2 years ahead of me. And you'd see them in and out a bunch. Nobody else my age, though. And it was mostly people much older than me who I dealt with. But then one day something happened. The friend who I spoke of, who's not with us anymore, I hadn't seen him in a couple of years. I get a call, and I was selling other stuff at this time, not dope. It was the other stuff that I was selling, was like blow and weed or something like that. And find out he's at this hotel, and I'm like, how did he get hooked in with people from my area? He's from the whole other side of town. And I get over there, and I walk in, and these two older kids that everybody in my school looked up to in my grade have these 10 kids in this hotel room laid out. They've gotten them on the needle from the start. Told them, oh, it's so much better that way, and got them to try it from the jump. So they skipped right to the hardcore. And somebody mentioned in the comments there's a sick thing where addicts like to be the first person to introduce somebody to the needle. It's something that does exist, and it does happen, and it's crazy. But anyway, yeah. So ultimately, as a homeless dealer, I needed a place to stay. And there was a friend whose dad had him selling pills and everything else for him, and he basically made me a deal for a discounted rate. You can stay here, have a room, do your thing, have everybody over, but you never run out. When you're getting ready to run out, you keep some back from me. Your job's to never run out and to give it to me for this price. So I went with that. Now, during this time, a lot of stuff was going on with a lot of people, but one of the two people who introduced those 10 people to it had a job at this moving place. And this guy is the ultimate thief. He's still doing it. I heard a story about this like not even 2 months ago. Stealing something from his friend right in front of him. He ended up getting back. He ended up not getting it. There was something that happened that stopped it, But and then there was another situation I heard of where went over to this girl's house, and he barely got his foot in the door for the girl's mom kicked him out. And sure enough, she noticed that he'd stolen some electronic thing that was inside the house. Not giving too many details this way, but she ran out there and got it back up off of him. He's a master thief. Back before he was even like a stone cold addict, when he was just messing around, smoking green and stuff like that, he was stealing stuff, and he's good at it. He's good at stealing stuff, but he's a piece of crap for doing it, and keeps on tailing his way out of it. And he gets to keep on doing the same old thing. So he worked at this moving place, and the first thing that he did at any new home was he would go to the medicine cabinet, of course. That was a huge thing, around the time back then when everybody discovered something. It's not like it is today. Prescriptions were written very freely. There was not a person just about that didn't have 2 or 3 prescriptions from the dentist, in which they used a couple and didn't take any more, so they just stayed in the medicine cabinet. So there were tons and tons of bottles of medicine cabinets that people had back then. It was everywhere. There was not like a house that didn't have 2, 3, 5, 10 bottles of something that somebody just didn't use all of, because they took a couple, then when they felt like they didn't need it, they didn't take any more. So that was the first thing that he did. So he'd have that, and he'd try to peddle them off. He'd use a lot of them in a lot of cases. And the other thing he did was he looked for anything he could snatch. And a lot of the time, that'd be jewelry. So my mom owns a small business as a jeweler. So something that happened, kind of started with him, but it became a big thing among everybody, was everybody assumed since I was a dealer, that I'd be the person to take the jewelry to. Now, the reason I was a dealer too, just to break it down to you, it doesn't excuse it, doesn't make it right, but I try to explain stuff so everybody can understand it. People who are in that world, people who are not in that world. I sold so I didn't have to scam, scheme, or steal. And I also sold so I have a place to sleep, because if I didn't have money, if I didn't have a reason, I would not have a place to live. I slept in a parking lot a good many times. Nobody knew I was a homeless drug dealer. And I hid it really well. But I learned you had to have so much money, and I had to have so much backstash. I was scared of running out. I always had a backstash for myself, and it was not a good life. I remember wanting an RV so bad back then, because I felt like if I had an RV, I'd never be homeless. It was like a thing that I wanted so bad. I wanted to get enough money, get a nice little RV, just so then I do that, But even then, if you spend more than $10,000, they have to report it to IRS, and I had no credit, so I don't know how that would have happened. That's the thing. You don't have credit. You don't have that. It's hard to use if the money that you make off of that anyway. So he brought me this jewelry, and that's where my chop shop started. If you've listened to Larry Lawton, you might have heard him talk about this. I believe I have before. He was a jewel thief. So anyway, what a chop shop for jewelry is it breaks it down to the scrap. You break it down to where it can't be identified and just sell it for the scrap weight. So basically, like, I've got a ring, and I clip here and I clip here, and I straighten this part out so it's a bar, and I pull all the stones out of it. Now, my mom wasn't buying this jewelry from me. They all assumed they'd sell it to me, I'd sell it to her. She wasn't going to condone that. So I had to find somewhere to sell it at. Something you may or may not know. Jewelry markup is 300%. If you buy something for $3,000, it is worth $1,000 in scrap weight, which is what the pawn shops look to pay you. So it's worth $1,000. They'll typically give you $300, and they'll make $700 off you. Most pawn shops, it's terrible. It's awful. And they won't pay you for the diamonds or stones in it. They don't even weigh that. They just weigh it for the metal's value, okay? It's messed up. They rip people off. Some of them don't as bad as others. Some of them give you half, but I found a guy who'd give me more than half at a very good deal. And it wasn't even a pawn shop. He had this like grimy store, man, and people knew that he was the guy. He must have had this whole back room full of all kinds of storage stuff. Cops would show up there, ask him, "Have you seen some? I've never heard of this person before." Big guys, tattoos, and he was running this thing, and it was a wild situation. But we had a nice little arrangement going on. And what I'd do is I'd take him to scrap, and a lot of times I just kept the stones, and I'd end up hiding them, hid them, and being intoxicated, sometimes I'd leave them somewhere and forget, and actually found them a long time later. I found, hundreds of diamonds and other stones that I'd had hidden way after the fact, which is a wild thing. So basically, that was the thing. Taking it, stripping it down, selling it to him, and making the few dollars off of that, which proved to be a nice little chunk. And knowing how much I was going to get ahead of time and having digital scales on me anyway, I'd weigh it out and give it to him accordingly. So I was making the amount that I should have been making. I hid them in the strangest place, like Crayola markers. I would take the back end off of it, and I would take the ink cartridge out, and I would fill it plumb full to where you couldn't hear anything shaking with it, or I'd put paper towel, toilet paper in there and stuff that down so you couldn't hear anything sounded out of order. And I'd put the back onto it. So I'd have like a set of markers. Nobody's going to think to steal a marker full of all these stones. Ended up being a tremendous amount. I mean, and forgetting about it. I'd take it place to place, but then after a while just forgot about it. Find it all this time later. It's pretty wild stuff. But it became a common thing. It became a common theme to a point where it was just thought, I was that guy for that, to where there was a situation with somebody that's not with us anymore either, who was like kind of like my sidekick for a long time, and it kind of ended up being the end of our friendship. He did me dirty on this. Okay, at this time, family was out of town. He threw a party, a huge party at the house. Ended up being packed full of all kinds of users. Something got stolen. A piece of jewelry got stolen. It was worth a lot. And I got blamed for it. So I had like this dude who was, tied in with the family, had a relationship, that just randomly like started trying to chase me one day. And I was in my S2000, Fast and the Furious days. I had it supercharged up and everything else. Yeah, I grew up in the Fast and the Furious era. It was a thing. It was back then. I still think it's cool. But anyway, if they bring back the S2000, I'm gonna find a way to get one. They're talking about bringing it back next year. Red line's at like 9,500 RPMs, 6-speed, 240 horsepower. It's got a motorcycle style engine in it, and it's extremely lightweight. And where I did the driving for that smuggler for so long, there were a number of times that people knew that I was the driver, and they tried to get me. And I got good at driving the back roads, and there was a certain set of back roads that I knew that nobody else did, and I'd always lose people in it. But I'd lose people quick, but I couldn't figure out why is this guy chasing me? Who is this dude? What is going on? Because he's a grown man, pretty big guy too. Look reasonably tough. He's in a nice car too. I'm not going to say what kind it is, just put them out there. But one day I'm just like, you know what, screw it. I had something in the car that made me feel confident that I could protect myself, just leave it at that. And I was tired of this, because it's like the second or third time this happened. He pulls up to me at the stoplight, and I'm like, dude, what's your deal? He says, you know what my deal is, you jewel stealing piece of... And I'm like, I don't know you. And he mentions a name, and I'm like, what does that have to do with me? He says, you know what it has to do with you. I said, man, you better quit following me. And I showed something that persuaded him to quit following me. And then he took off. Then ended up at this guy's house. It actually is apartment. And I parked out back. It was somewhere nearby that I could get to quick. I figure I need to put some stuff away and everything else. And they done called the people on me and everything. And, you know, there's no proof of anything and everything else. And they started questioning me and interrogating me. And I said, he was saying it was two cops and this guy, and he said, the truth will set you free. And I said, I know what's going to set me free because I didn't do it. The truth will set me free because I didn't do it. You're not going to catch me because I didn't do it. And the one little fat, Corky Romano cop with the mustache, probably about giant, big old belly, that little flat top with this little, you know, chomo-looking mustaches. Oh, we will catch you. It will be a matter of time, and you will go down. And he gets mad, but the other cop's smiling this stupid smile, and he says, the truth will set you free. And I'm like, I know it will, because I didn't do it. You're not going to catch. And the other cop's getting madder when I say, you're not going to get me because I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I really didn't do it. And I said, okay, I got a word for you. He's like, oh, yeah, what's that? And I said, lawyer. And he's like, you could make this so much simpler. I said, lawyer. He said, the truth will set you free. He kept saying that over and over. And I ended up getting fed up with it. Went back inside. They went down, and they wouldn't leave. I kept looking at them out the window. There's a particular story about one of my best friends setting me up. This particular friend had been caught. It was a crazy story, but he had an apartment that basically just allowed me to make a crazy trap apartment, and somebody had left something in his apartment, and basically it got evicted and everything else. It was trashed out, but hidden in the apartment, there was I think it was like an empty bag of dope, but it had residue on it, and like a pill or something like that. And he ended up getting caught for that, and I believe it was that he got caught for, that he ended up informing. He said something because he had some issue, and he said, I can't remember what the issue was that he had, but something had happened where something had got broken into. He's like, I've got this guy who's a friend, I'll call him. Well, his friend, the detective guy, went down there and was talking to these two cops and got them out of there. And I thought, shoot, man, you're connected. I was stupid. That's probably the detective he was informing to me about. And the detective probably went down there and said, y'all, listen, we're building a case here. You need to go on, get out of here, let this go. We got other stuff we're working on right now. I didn't see it at all at the time. I don't know for sure that's what it is, but it did seem weird. And I thought, you know, because that guy was like a brother. It took me probably sitting in jail for 6 to 9 months before I realized my best friend, a guy who's like a brother, he set me up. I got out of jail, and this mother tried to Facebook friend me, and he messaged me. I said, listen, man, I was angry at first, but then I sent him a message. I said, listen, I know what you did, man. I said, this has been the one thing that has driven me crazy thinking about, because I thought, how did it happen? I know what you did, man. I said, and I named a few things, and he sent back a message to somebody else I knew saying he swore to God that he didn't do it, that he thought of me like a brother and all this. And I was just like, whatever. Didn't talk to him again after that. And later on, what I found out about him was he was informing in order to stay out. So he didn't get locked up. He kept on informing and informing on people, and they had to deal with him. Well, he did that with the wrong people. There was a group of bikers that he got tied in with, from what I heard. I don't know that for 100%, but I know it because somebody like his stepdad or something like that ended up coming, telling my mom about it. All these years later, like 6-7 years after that, I was in prison when this happened. This guy's stepdad came in and told my mom that he'd cry himself to sleep, talking to his mom, saying how he knew he messed up, telling on me, his best friend who's like his brother. That's how I know for a fact it happened. But anyway, him informing on the wrong people, what it sounds like happened, what the suspicion that might have happened was, they gave him what's called a hot shot. They give him something that's going to take him out. and it took him out. He ain't with us anymore either. If you notice in my stories, there are a lot of people that aren't with us anymore. So it's definitely something to consider about this. But anyway, it's just something I was thinking about because it's a pretty wild thing. You know, imagine just random markers here and there are filled up with stones. Probably to this day, still, still sitting here or there, that have all these stones in them from my little jewelry chop shop that I had. And yeah, it was a weird little thing. Hadn't thought about it. Just something reminded me of it, and I figured I'd share a story with you guys. But anyway, if you like the video, if you think I earned it, press the like button. If not, that is 20 minutes and 38 seconds of your life, in which you'll never get back. For y'all who've been watching, my right ear is completely deaf again. If my voice sounds a little shaky, it's because it feels like there's a ringing in my head, like somebody's yelling in my right ear. It's miserable. I'm stubborn and I'm stupid, so I have not gone to the doctor yet. I hadn't taken a medication for an illness since I was 16 years old. Notice it's usually too late to take it by the time you take it, and I just don't want to go. And I probably should go, and I might have to go. But in terms of me responding back to as many comments, I'm trying to get a few at a time when it settles a little bit. But it's really rough right now. It's been the sickest I've been in a long time, and feels like it's getting a little bit better with that. But the ear, man, it's like feels like right in my right ear. So anyway, apologize for not getting back to as many. It's not a permanent thing. And I keep saying it because that's unlike me to not respond to like everyone on a new video, which I usually do, which I'm gonna keep doing. I'm promising you, I'm letting you know, I'm not forgetting, I'm not abandoning, but like it's taken me probably 8 tries to do this video right here. Okay, that finally gotten it this far. It literally gets to a point where I just have to like stick my finger in my ear and I mean that's kind of nasty and weird looking to be on here. So this is the first time I've been able to make it through. So I hope you guys liked the video, and I apologize just having issues that really suck right now. Y'all have a good one.